Hello and welcome. Welcome back to another episode of Peaceful Prisons Podcast. Glad to have everybody here. With me today is Abby Martin
Hey.
and LeRon Barton, our guest today.
Hey, what's going on? How are you guys?
Excellent. Excellent to be with you guys today. I'm excited to do another podcast recording. I feel like it's been a little while since we recorded, but I'm excited to get back into it and just talk about our experiences, personal experiences with, uh, the law, the justice system, police officers, or whatever kind of experience you've had maybe growing up in this country. Just you know, take walk us through, what you've been through, maybe your perspective, and just yeah, share a little bit with us, Laurent.
Sure, yeah. So my name is LeRon Barton. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. Been on the West Coast since 2005. I grew up in Southside Kansas City, in an area that saw quite a bit of police activity. I was subject to just witnessing the the crack epidemic not necessarily ravaged my community because I came of age in like the late '80s, early '90s. Like I was born in '78, but like I didn't really start to sort of see things until like you know '89, '90, and so on and so forth. So we were sort of like in like the tail end of or the middle of the epidemic. So it had already settled in. Growing up, I was taught by my mother that there are family members that are on drugs. Or my mom, she would always say they're on that end. I'm sorry, and just knowing that you are a black male in America, you are a black boy, a black man, so you're going to be subjected to a specific type of treatment from the police. That was never it was never hidden from me because even if it was hidden, I'm going to experience it anyway. So my mother wanted to prepare my brother and I, who's my best friend. She wanted to prepare us for what we were to see. And you would just be around the neighborhood, you would see police cars, go by, you would hear stories about people being pulled over, people being, excuse me, language, people being fucked with for no reason. And so that really shaped the way that I view the police. Like they were never a helpful entity in the neighborhood. They were always an occupying force, if you will. I understand when someone from Palestine will say, "Oh, we live in occupied territory," because the police were the occupiers. They were there to quote unquote put us in line. And the thing about Kansas City, Abby and Baylen, is that it's separated by east and west, right? So everything east of Truce, that's kind of a black neighborhood. It's things are just kind of dilapidated. Schools are not very well. You see a lot of liquor stores. You just see trash and just people trying to make it. Anything west of Truce, things start to get a little nicer. Trees, manicured lawns, high end stores, and so it was an incredibly huge divide between the haves and the have-nots. And yeah, I mean, it race was always a very central component in my life. I'm a black man in America. We're the most incarcerated group in America by far. So the most arrested, the most killed by police. I mean, of course, there are more white people in America, so they're killed by police more. But just from a perspective of per person, population wise, we're the most impacted, and that's just pretty much kind of shaped who I am. Like I always I always knew that that there was unfairness to it. But to quote Joy Taylor, fair is where you get funnel cakes. So it's, you know what I mean. It really has nothing to do with it at the end of the day.
Right. So I'm guessing your experience just as a youngster walking down the street, you would see a police car drive by, or you would see an officer walking by you, and what would be going through your mind, or what would you be talking about with your friends whenever you saw them? Would it be more of like a fear? Would they be instilling fear in the community, or was it like a power
100%.
thing?
Yeah, 100%. So it's definitely all about fear. It's definitely all about, keeping us keeping us in line. For me, just being being a young guy with my friends, when we would see police, we would say to each other, "Hey, yo, there goes the police. Hey, 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 yo, be cool, be cool, be cool." Like, we wanted to be as non-threatening as possible. Because here's the thing, right? When the police approach you, you have to quote unquote shrink yourself. So when I was 16 years old, right, my mother gave me the talk. The reason why that she gave me the talk at that age is because I was starting to drive, and there was a big argument we had. I'll never forget this argument. Like, she was just, I had to wrestle my car keys from her. She said, I don't want him. I don't want him to die. I thought it was because I was such a bad driver, which, look, I gotta be honest with you guys. Like, I'm not a good driver. Like, I tend to ride the the brake hard. Like, I think driving is one of those things where you have to be 100% focused. And I have ADHD. I'm thinking about something I saw on YouTube. I'm thinking about lunch as I'm driving. I'm singing. I'm on my phone. It's just like all this stuff. But she was actually concerned because of just police stopping us. And I've been subjected to police pulling me over for no reason. And one of the things that I was always taught, by my mom, is like, you want to make yourself as non-threatening as possible. And that's just something that it's a survival tactic. It's not something that you should do, but it's something that you have to do. So yeah, man. I mean, like, even like, bro, like, I'll give you a story. Last year, I was driving through Wyoming, right? Wyoming is big and beautiful and it's vast. And I was a little impatient behind this woman. Mind you, this is a one lane street, so I knew what I was doing was wrong. I was like, okay, this person is just moving slow. So I, you know, go into the other lane, drive up to pass her, and then a police car stops me, and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, okay, so, and I'm serious. This is no hyperbole. I say to myself, okay, LeRon, this could be it. I I took a deep breath. I said, all right, you know, I could die here. You know, when I come across the the police, I treat it as like as a life or death situation. I don't joke when it comes to that. And that's what I said to myself. I was like, all right, well, this could be it, man. I mean, let's just be calm. But no matter how calm or how small I make myself, I'm not in control at that point. You know.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, trying to think of the reason why this is happening, um, just historically, throughout our country's past, and really all over the world. This kind of happens where the the people in power are historically reinforcing the narrative that, or it's being reinforced for them, that anyone who doesn't look like them is a threat, or they're doing something wrong, or you have to keep an eye on them because you don't know. And I feel like the change coming out of that is just slow. The people still look at other races or other people that just don't resemble themselves, and they see them as something unknown or something like a threat and something dangerous, and then that gets put on the individuals who get pulled over, like yourself, where you feel that fear. And I don't know, do you feel like we're making any progress, or how can progress be made?
Um, do I feel like we're making well? So it would be foolish for me not to say that there has not been progress made, right? So
Yeah.
this is 2024.
Yeah.
In 1965, I believe that's when the Civil Rights Act was passed. That's not even 6 years ago. But in the 60s, people were I'm sorry, it was Civil Rights Act of 1964. I'm sorry. So that was 60 years ago. People
Mm.
were still being attacked with dogs, fire hoses. School integration was extremely violent. You there's a different kind of progress, Balin. I mean, I can go into a restaurant and not have to go through the back door, right? Obviously, right? Like I can get a I can get a job or I'm sorry, try to get a job. But I can buy a home in most areas, if I can afford it. We all talked about the incredible cost of home ownership. But there's still the arrest rates and the incarceration rates are still way too high. Homelessness among black people, chiefly black men, is still way too high. I mean, there's incremental process. I'm sorry, progress. I went to the the Legacy Legacy Center in Birmingham, Alabama. It's the most impactful experience I've ever had in my life. It is a place that was created by or was Brian Stevenson, civil rights attorney, Just Mercy fame. His organization created this museum, and what it is that it shows the story of African Americans in America from how we were taken, our journey through slavery, like Civil War Reconstruction, Jim Crow, the Black Codes, the Civil Rights Movement, the war on drugs, mass incarceration. Like, it is our story. And so when you look at where we were and where we are, yes, we've made progress, but I know that we will never truly be whole because it's impossible to be whole in a country like this that does not even acknowledge that there was something done wrong. Or let me rephrase that. They may have acknowledged it, but they don't want to take the steps to repair it, to make us whole. So being black in America is an exercise of patience and worry and just being the hesitancy to do certain things, the having to overthink situations. I mean, it's. I mean, look, Abby, you live in Wisconsin, which is one of the
Mhm.
most egregiously rough places to be black. You and I, we've talked about what's the lovely gentleman's name, Ron Washington. What's that guy's name? Like, God, he's just incredibly bad person.
Ron Johnson.
Exactly, yeah. God, just a slime ball, right? I mean, but people like that tend to make things a little rough. But But we can talk about that all day, every day, though.
It's
Yeah.
interesting that you brought up, being a black man in America, you could go to any restaurant you want and you don't have to use the back door. And well, I think that is objectively true. That's a true statement. You are free to walk into any restaurant.
Right.
About maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago now, my dad owned a bar in like the North Mountains of Georgia. And he had a friend who was a black sheriff in Atlanta. And he came to eat at this restaurant. And he was a good guy. He was dating one of the waitresses at the bar. And it was a bar restaurant. And he comes in, he's in his sheriff's, like, not costume, out uniform. And he's sitting at the table and they're eating their meal, and he's having a great time. We're all nice to him as staff, and there's a non-issue. A couple people in the booth behind him, white folks, start spitballing him with like straws, like paper straws,
Wow.
in the back of the head. And they're like, and my dad, middle-aged white man, goes, well, let's go kick those people out. Like, they're being assholes. And a couple of the other staff who were local, so we're not from Georgia, we just moved there. A couple of the staff who were born and raised in Georgia were like, you do not want to do that. And so my dad talked to the sheriff, and he was like, it's fine. Like, it's cool. It's not cool, but he was like, I get it. It happens more often than you think. Like, it's fine. He leaves. About maybe 10 months later, less than 8, the whole bar is like, nobody's coming into the bar. Nobody, sales are super down. And it was a fun bar. And we had great food. We had great music. And just everybody stopped coming into the bar. And, essentially because we were like friendly to all people. And so it is interesting that while, yeah, you're legally and freely able to walk into a restaurant, you're kind of, what is that, like, tried by a court of public opinion.
Sure.
Like, you will be treated a certain way, and then that establishment then will reap the consequences, as well as the trauma and the injury to the individuals. So I'm not sure that just because it's legal means that it's truly free for everybody.
Right. Yeah. No. Like, there's always something. I mean, you for every inch of progress, there's always 2 inches of backlash.
Hmm.
So I mean, that's just. I mean,
Definitely.
that's just that's just what it is, though.
Yeah, well, like you were
I mean,
saying, civil rights movement was going on 64, and that's still in some people's lifetimes that are still alive today,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that memory, that way of life is still living. It's still in people's minds, and it's still like a fresh uh, it's still a fresh reminder of like, okay, this is how things were. So the change
One hundred
coming
percent.
out of that way of thinking, I feel like time heals all wounds, or that's what they say, so maybe it's just about time. Maybe that generation just needs to like pass, and then a new perspective can be taught and lived. So how are we gonna teach kids? How are we gonna teach, this generation to feel
Well,
safe?
well,
Well, and that's kind of a crap response too, because if time does heal all wounds, which in theory and on paper that sounds great, but people are dying today. Like, what do we just have to
right.
let a
Yeah.
whole bunch of people die and a whole bunch of people suffer until time catches up? That doesn't seem fair to the people to all
Yeah.
of us that are
Right.
living in the generation right now.
Right.
Yeah, like that. It's a very good point, Abby. It just reminds me of something that James Baldwin said. He asked, is like, well, when, if not now, when? Like, we've
Yeah.
been waiting. You've been telling us, wait. Well, like, we're tired of waiting,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
so therein lies the issue. Is like, when is it like, you just beyond like, when are white people going to get their shit together? And so, I mean, I don't know,
When will
like,
we?
it's.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like, we're gonna wait for people to die off, but it's like, if you look at the young man that killed Heather Heyer, rest her peace. I'm sorry, rest in peace. And in Charlottesville, if you look at Dylan Roof, if you look at the young man that killed people in Buffalo, they were young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I wonder if
it's
part of that is also just exposure. You know, I grew up in a predominantly high high income white neighborhood growing up. My first real hands-on experience with racism wasn't until I was 18. I took a flight to Georgia and a woman picked me up. My dad knew her and she was nice. She was a pharmacy tech, like educated, smart. She's taking me back to her house for dinner, and we're like driving through, we're winding through all these roads and stuff. And she lives in one of those double wides, and it was a double wide kind of trailer
mhm.
park situation. I'm seeing all these like stuffed animals in trees, right? And I'm 18. I have like no
Wow.
idea what's going on. I do dinner. It was a lovely dinner. I met her husband, her kids. I called my dad. I was like, Dad, it's July. Are they decorating for Halloween? Like, what's happening here? And he's like, oh, no, like, you know, you're just in the South. They're like, it's reference to lynchings. And I was like, what? And I had no exposure. And
What?
I've traveled all over. Even as a kid, my parents would take me all over, and that was my first like, holy shit, like this is alive and well, and it's happening
Yeah.
around me, and my eyes just weren't open. I didn't see it. I wasn't paying attention, and chalk part of it up to being a dumb kid who's not, looking around her surroundings. But
I didn't
a
even
large of it was,
I I didn't even know that. Wow,
yeah.
that's
I mean,
that's
it
madness.
blew my mind. I legitimately thought they were decorating for Halloween. That's how naive I was.
Hmm.
Wow,
And
that's
how do we get kids today to see that just because it's not happening maybe right in your neighborhood, like your immediate neighborhood, your next door neighbor might not be, hanging stuffed animals in trees, but it is happening elsewhere. It is happening
Mhm.
around. It's happening to our
right.
brothers and sisters, and we have to stop that.
I think that we cannot be afraid to talk about race. Just like we can't be afraid to talk about mass incarceration. You know, one of the things that I know, and that the three of us, we all share. Is that, we have we have a passion for helping those who are incarcerated. Helping those post incarceration, and you know, this needs to be talked about. This needs to be demystified. Like there's a lot of stigma, right? And so, like for example, there's a lot of there's in America, and I can't speak for other countries, Abby and Baylen, but and you all know this better than I will ever than better than I will ever know this, but in America, post incarceration, you're often uh, met with like a scarlet letter, right? So you're bad, you're forever cast out, and it's like life is not that simple. And this is coming from somebody who loves to live in a black and white linear existence. Is life is not that simple. When I did my talk at South by Southwest this year with my colleague and friend Eric, we talked about second chances, right? And he was telling me a story about he's working with these guys who got out, and they're they're nervous about staying out. And he says like, well, what if I mess up? What if I go back in? Can I come back here? And he's like, yeah, man. We'll give you another chance, and we'll give you another chance, and another chance, and another chance. So it's about talking about how the prison system impacts us, and race sort of intertwines with that, right? Race intersects with everything, but we have to talk about the inequities and and how sometimes people fuck up and they need two or three chances to get it right. You know, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I
So
completely
I
agree with
personally,
the. Oh, go ahead, Abby.
oh, I was just gonna say, I talk about black and white thinking and linear thinking is. I personally get so annoyed when people say second chances. It implies that
Right.
there was ever a first chance, right? And so many people, if not damn everybody, has not been given that first chance. I mean, just the benefit of the doubt or the ability to make your own choices or whatever that is, being born to the right family, being born with the right connection. So many people for whatever reason don't even get that first chance. So then as soon as you messed up that first chance that somebody kind of ambiguously gave you, now it's on you single-handedly to make it up so you don't mess up that second chance. And you're like, where was this first chance? Who told me about this first chance?
Right. Right. Yeah. No, like, yeah, I mean, it's in America, it's so much of your trajectory in life is based upon your your parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all know the majority of wealth in this country is inherited, right? It's not what you did, it's not what your family did, it's not what your grandparents did. It's probably not even what your great grandparents did. It's what the people did prior. So you're already born in a system that you're without. So you're gonna do what you have. Look, when I when I spoke at Oxford, I said, you know, some people feel like that they have to do what they have to do to get where they have to get, right? And if that means breaking a law, then that means breaking a law. People don't understand that sometimes you have to do things that may not fit into into the moral compass, right? That it may not be quote unquote right, but shit, man, like when you've been locked out of opportunities to quote unquote get it, I mean, what do you expect from me to do? And so this is where the system comes in, that they're going to punish you for for trying to survive. Listen, it is extremely expensive to be poor in this country. Let me say that again. It is extremely expensive to be poor in this country. Why do I say that? Okay, so in Kansas, there's a controversy behind uh, traffic tickets and traffic stops. And if people get a traffic ticket, and if they can't afford to pay this, let's say $100 to $200 traffic ticket, then it may not only affect their license, but then it goes to creditors. And then fees start to accumulate. So that $100 or $200 traffic ticket is now $800. How do you afford that when you're poor?
You
It's
couldn't even
it,
afford the $200 ticket. Now you got $800. You can't afford
it
that four times as
it's
much.
exactly. Or what if you just so happen to just in the hood we call it riding dirty, right? Which so happens if you riding dirty, your license is messed up. It's suspended. Oh, okay, well, your car could get towed, which is last time I checked, it's like off the rip $400. You go to jail. Somebody's got to bond you out. You don't have that money, because if you did, you would be able to get your license straight. So these things pile up. If you don't have medical insurance, you need to go to the doctor. Well, damn, I can't miss this. I can't miss this shift at work, or your kid gets sick. Well, I I gotta stay at home from my job, so my check's gonna be short. Do you see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's expensive to
Absolutely.
be poor, and to be poor. If you I look, I remember, and I wasn't even poor. Like you, like the three of us, we talked about credit. When I got my first well, my second apartment in San Francisco, I was living in the Tenderloin, and to get this apartment, I had to put down like $2,400. That's
Hmm.
crazy
Yeah. First month's,
for
last
a
month, security
shitbox
deposit.
studio.
Like,
That's
yeah.
that that's insane, right? So again, if you're poor, you're going to pay much more. Like, the convenience store around your neighborhood is going to mark up prices on the food. You're probably living in a food desert. It's expensive to be poor. So if you're poor, you want to try to support yourself, and unfortunately, and listen, trying to uh I'm not trying to tell people to break the law. There's this quote that I got from this show I love. It's one of my favorite true true crime podcasts. It's called Southern Fried True Crime. Shout out to Erica Kelly. She's amazing. She said in one of her episodes, "This is not an excuse, but an explanation." So,
Right.
yeah, yeah, man. You shouldn't break the law, because when you get in that system, it's hard to get out. But shit, when you're pushed between a rock and a hard place, you're gonna do what you got to do to get where you got to get.
Hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people, I feel like the majority of the public aren't even aware. They don't even understand the struggle, the reality of like you're saying, how expensive it is to be poor, just to be in an underprivileged community. And something else you were saying is that the dialogue needs to happen, right? I feel like stereotypes and stigma and racism is all passed down. It's all passed down
One,
through words and stories and
hundred
through
percent.
speaking with one another. So in order to counterbalance that, we need to have more conversations like this, have conversations that are more enlightening and more real, you know?
You know what? I want to ask a question. You two have served time in facilities. One of the most I was I've been told by various people, one of the most important things someone needs when they get out is a plan, is a foundation, is support. What was it like when you two were released? Did you have that support? Did your family welcome you with open arms, or I mean, like, what was that like? I'm just curious.
For me personally, I've been lucky enough to have someone in my family open the doors when I got out. When I walked out, I did have a place to go and sleep and live, basically rent free until I could
Damn,
get a
that's
job and
good.
save up some money and then do my own thing. So I was blessed with that, and I know that's not the case for everyone. For the majority of people, they don't have that. For example, when I paroled from Oregon, I had the choice. They said you either have to stay in Oregon, where I would have been homeless. I would have been on the street. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any family. I would have been told to stay in Multnomah County. I would have
Sure.
been living in a homeless shelter, and trying to get back on my feet that way. Um, but I was lucky enough to get an interstate compact. I could move out of the state and stay with family. So that was, I feel blessed and very thankful for that.
And
What
just to
about you,
clarify,
Abby?
I have never been to prison. I have never been to
Okay.
prison.
Oh,
I've been to jail.
I'm
I've
sorry about
always
that.
been, no, that's okay. I've always been lucky enough to have kind of paid to stay out. So before, every time I've been arrested, every time I've gotten into trouble, we've always been able to afford to to play the court game. So I didn't ever have to
Hmm.
get go to prison,
Okay.
which is
Um,
another huge issue too. That some might argue that my crimes are significantly um, more damaging to the community than others, and I had the blessing of having a financially stable family and financially stable support system that I could just get out of it, even though kind of everybody knew that I was more of a danger to society than many other folks that didn't have the means to stay out, but that didn't matter, you know.
Right. Yeah.
wow.
So the I think the most frequent story that I've heard is people get out and they don't have those opportunities and they have to scratch and claw to make a living or to pay their fines and court costs and to make it to probation, to their appointments, to go to all these requirements. And they make it really difficult so people end up going back to what they knew, or they go back to the easiest thing, which in some cases is selling dope or stealing or whatever it may be. So it's this cycle, it's this revolving door.
And Baylen, you were
Yeah.
blessed too that your family is not only supportive but relatively healthy. I mean,
Yeah.
healthy um, in kind of every area, financially, emotionally, but then also in their own lives. I mean,
Mm.
to my knowledge, your family isn't gang affiliated or crime affiliated. They
Right.
are stable enough to kind of avoid that track. But so many people are
Hmm.
released back into their families that are also doing the things that led that
Right.
individual
You know what?
incarcerated in the
I
first
never
place.
thought, Abby. I never thought of that. Damn.
Absolutely. And that's what gets a lot of people into the system is in the first place is because they were raised that way. They saw their older brother or their father or their mother going through the system and going through all those loopholes and jumping through all the hoops, and so they grow up thinking that's their path too. So
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Or
Like that. There's
maybe
yeah.
you get out of prison, you're like, okay, I'm going to change my life. I've got this great plan. My plan
Hmm.
is solid. I've got the support. But now your options are, stay in Oregon where you're going to be homeless, or move back to family that are all, quote, criminals and
Yeah.
you know, doing crime to survive.
Yeah.
And those are your two options. Both are incredibly hard, if not impossible situations.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm, oh, I'm sorry, Baleen. Please continue.
I know. I was actually saying we're about to wrap it up pretty soon, but I'd love to hear, any last words. I'd like to hear final thoughts.
Man, it's funny. We talk. We're three people. We've kind of been through what we've been through, and for me, I think the work post incarceration is important because people need another chance, and because I could have been subject to that. I mean, listen, I've been through a lot of shit, man. I mean, I've been lucky. I've been I definitely
No.
have had close calls. You know, man, like I'm a quote machine today, but there's a great quote. They believe the gentleman's name was John Bradford. There go I, if not for the grace of God, and just because I've had so many scrapes and close calls, and shit could have been bad. I have to do what I can to help people avoid that, or I'm sorry, not even avoid that, but just help them get a voice. You know,
Hmm.
when we talk about like the stigma and the belief that people are bad. I think what's really important is that we need to highlight those who have done time. So this is why it's really important for me to talk to Baylen, who has been inside, who who knows the minutia everyday experience, and just being out and trying to reacclimate, and and each one teach one. Help. I mean, because at the end of the day, there's so much erroneous information about the mass incarceration system and why people do. And so that's what I'm really aiming on, is just to help people have a voice, hopefully help people get intact and just live, man.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your
Yeah,
time, LeRon. Yeah.
No,
Thank you
this
for
was
sharing your
incredible.
stories, your
no problem.
stories, your thoughts, the quotes. I love it all. It's always
It's a lot of
it's always a
quotes.
unique and it's always a blessing talking to you. I always feel better after
Thank
hearing
you
your
so
words
much.
and your voice.
Yeah, I
Thank,
feel more
thank,
hopeful after talking to you.
thank you
Yeah.
so much, Abby. And if I may say, like, your hair is always on point. Like, you're like, for real. Like, you're like, I'm like, okay, I got to get my hair cut clean, because it's like, Abby's gonna be making us look bad. So, but I mean, no, like, seriously, like, I'm
It's freshly
I'm
washed
really
too.
happy. No, it looks great, but no, I'm really happy to be working with you all, to be working with the P3 staff. Everyone's great, and just everyone really wants to do to do good work, and so whatever I can do to support, I'm 100% there. So
Yeah, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Laron. Thank everyone who's involved in Peaceful Prisons podcast and the project. I just want to say to all the listeners, let us know in what ways this podcast episode has been uniquely impactful for you, and we look forward to hearing you on the next one. All right,
absolutely, let's get it. You all take care.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you.